How to graph an equation. I'll be giving you graph paper. It'll look something like this. The first one we have to try to graph is y equals 2x plus 3. Y equals 2x plus 3. That's in slope-intercept form, in which the 2 is the slope and the 3 is the y-intercept. It is with the graph. The first thing you have to look at is the number at the end and the sign that goes with it. Plus 3. That is the y-intercept. That means it intersects the y-axis, the one that runs up and down through the middle, at a positive 3. So find 3 on that y-axis and place a dot. Then you follow the slope. The slope is 2. That's the same thing as 2 over 1. If it's positive, that means you go up 2 and then to the right 1 from that dot. So we'll go up 2 and then to the right 1 and make a dot. Then, using a ruler or a straight edge by folding paper in half several times until it becomes stiff, the edge of a book, a folder, whatever, you're going to draw the line through this graph. And here's how it goes. And it doesn't go like that. That's a circle. So we need a line. There it is. Your line will go through those points like this, and you must put arrows at either end of the line, and it must extend all the way through the graph. Those three things must be in place, otherwise we will not count it. You cannot turn in anything like this. It doesn't go all the way through the graph. It doesn't have arrows on either end, but it does look straight. You can't turn in anything that looks like this. No arrows, it's not straight, although it might go all the way through the graph. It must look like this, straight all the way through the graph and arrows at either end. The next one is y equals a negative half x minus 3. Y equals a negative half x minus 3. The slope is a negative 1/2. The y-intercept is a negative 3. Use this to graph it on the graph paper. Here it is with the graph. Your first move is to go to the y-intercept, which is the last number and the sign in front of it. That is a negative 3. You must go to the y-intercept and look for a negative 3. Find the negative 3 and then put a dot on that. The slope is a negative 1/2. A negative 1/2, since it's negative, it means it will go down 1 and then to the right 2. Down 1 to the right 2. So from the y-intercept that you made, you're going to go down 1 and then to the right 2. Down 1 to the right 2, and then make a dot. Then draw the line. Notice that it's straight, it goes all the way through the graph, and it has arrows at either side of the line. If you're doing homework and you do more than one line on a graph, then you must signify what line it is that you have graphed so that I can look at it and you can check it when the solutions are displayed. Here is how you signify what line it is. If this were problem number 2, then at either end of the line you would put a 2, like this. If you end up with graph paper and a bunch of lines and you have no problem numbers on it, it's going to be virtually impossible to check in a timely fashion. Put the problem number at either end of it. You have to be able to graph something like x equals 5. Anytime you see x equals just a number, and that's it, this is going to be a vertical line through 5 on the x-axis. So here it is with the graph paper. If x equals 5, then you have to go to 5 on the x-axis. And there it is. You now have to put a dot on that 5 and then draw a vertical line that goes straight up and down through that number and not freehand. Oh, there we go. I'm just trying to get rid of this line that I drew. Well, we'll just leave it. We'll go here. There is the line. Vertical line straight up and down that goes through 5 on the x-axis. That is x equals 5. Y equals negative 4. Y equals negative 4 is going to be a horizontal line through negative 4 on the y-axis. X is vertical, y is horizontal. Here's y equals negative 4 on the graph. All you need to do is find negative 4 on the y-axis and put a horizontal line through that. And there it is. You have to graph each one of these. You have to tell whether or not it's linear. And if it's linear, then you graph it. So we'll start with this one, 3a. Y equals 5x minus 9. Graph that one and bring it up. The first one, 3a, is indeed linear. It follows the form y equals mx plus b. That is the slope-intercept form. First move is to look at minus 9 and go to the negative 9 on the y-axis. So here is negative 9 on the y-axis. Make a dot.
Yeah, it goes down to negative 7.
Then we have to look at the 5. The slope is 5. So go back to your y-intercept, and if the slope is 5, you have to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then over 1, and make a dot. And then connect the line through there. Alright, so here comes the line. And I'm going to try to get this as close as I can with the tool that I use. There we go. And we have arrows at either end. Next one is 3b, y equals 12. Y equals 12. That is a horizontal line through 12 on the y-axis. Well, if you'll notice on this graph, it goes up to 11, so I simply have to make another hash mark up there, and then I will create the line through the graph. It's going to look like this. Move it into place. Arrows, arrows. That is y equals 12. Y equals 2 to the x power. There are the directions. Tell whether each function is linear. If so, graph the function. If not, write not linear and bring it up. This one is not linear. How to change a linear equation to standard form. We're going to change a linear equation to standard form. It's in slope-intercept form now. If you're going to change it to standard form, here is your first move. The first move is to get this x term on the left-hand side, which would make it negative 3x, and then plus y equals 2. According to standard form, the x must come first, and then the y second, the equal sign, and then the constant. You cannot have a negative a value. When I say a value, I mean the standard form is ax plus by equals c. That is from yesterday. If you do have a negative a term, you must change the sign of everything in the equation. So you will come up with 3x minus y equals a negative 2. This is in slope-intercept form. You want to change it to standard form. Standard form is ax plus by equals c. To get it into standard form, you need to move the x term from the right over to the left, out to the left of the y. Changing the sign, that would give you 4x plus y equals 5. Your a term is positive, therefore there is no need to change the sign of everything all the way through the equation. To change this to standard form, you have to move this term over here. Change the sign to get 2x plus y equals 9. Since this term is positive, you have nothing else to change. To change this into standard form, you would move this over to this side, change the sign, keep the y, and the negative 10 where they're at. You cannot have a negative sign on the a term, so we're going to make this 6x minus y equals a positive 10. This one is 3x plus 6y equals 12. And I want to graph this. In order to graph it, I have to put it into slope-intercept form, which means that I want my y by itself. So this 6y would have to stay where it's at. And the 3x would move over and become negative, keeping the plus 12 where it's at. Once you do that, you divide everything by the number that is with the y. When you do that, divide by 6 here, divide by 6 here, and divide by 6 here. Your 6's cancel out, leaving you with just a y. The negative 3x over 6 can be reduced. Negative 3 over 6 is a negative 1/2. And you keep the x, and then 12 over 6 is 2. Let's say I had something like x plus 2y equals 6. I want to put this in slope-intercept form, which means the y must be by itself. So keep the 2y where it's at, move the x to the right, and change the sign. Divide everything by what's with the y, so that the 2's cancel out. You're left with a y by itself, and you have negative x over 2. That's a negative 1x over 2, which is a negative half x. 6 divided by 2 is 3. You could have something like y minus 3x equals 7. If I want my y by itself, then I would move the minus 3x to the right and make it positive 3x and keep the 7. Notice that the y is by itself already. There's nothing left to do. That is your slope-intercept form of the equation of that line. You could have something like 4x plus 3 equals 2y plus 6. Well, you need your y by itself, and you want your y on the left, so why not just move it there? Change the sign. You need your x on the right, so move it there, change the sign. You have a 6 on the right, but you also have this plus 3 that must go over as well. 6 minus 3 is a 3. And now you can divide everything by negative 2. So you'll have y equals a positive 2x plus 1.5. Here's another instance of changing from slope-intercept to standard form. Where do I have to move the x term in standard form? To the left. So when we move it over there, we change the sign and keep everything else where it's at. But you can't have fractions or a negative number on the a term in standard form. So the first thing you can do is get rid of that negative sign on the a term and make it a half x and then minus y equals negative 6. Get rid of that. Next thing is you're going to need to get rid of the fraction. If I want to get rid of a denominator in a fraction, I can multiply everything in that equation by that number in the denominator. So I would multiply the entire equation by 2. When I multiply by 2, this 2 will cancel out this 2. It's the same thing as doing this. 2 times a half x minus 2 times y equals 2 times a negative 6. So now you can cancel out your 2's there and be left with x, and then minus 2y equals a negative 12.